The president should extend an olive branch. That's what we keep being told by the liberal left. And my question is really simple. To who? As never-Trumpers, ex-military people, and flaming liberals try to circle the wagons around President Trump and blame him for everything from the pandemic explosion in the United States to this racial unrest, which, let's be really honest, definitely preceded before Donald Trump ever stepped foot into the Oval Office. And when Barack Obama comes forward now and offers advice and recommendation and judgment on President Trump, excuse me, how many of these incidents did we have while Biden occupied 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue? And what exactly did he do to stem the tide of any of this? Let me just think for a half a second. Nothing. He did absolutely nothing. He was feckless. He was weak. This stuff only exasperated during his tenure, and he did absolutely nothing for his own people. Nothing. That said, who exactly is the president supposed to meet with? He came out immediately and he condemned the senseless killing of George Floyd. The problem that we're having right now is because this has been so whipped up into a frenzy and hysteria, and everybody is running on raw emotional feeling, you really can't have a discussion. You can't have a debate. It's amazing to me, people that I have known for years who are not racist, don't have a racist bone in their body. In fact, they would lean definitely much more liberal than I would. And yet they are finding themselves being accused by members within their own ranks that because they are refusing to go along with the organization of Black Lives Matter, because they are refusing to just parrot everything that's being said right now and just going along with the officially approved script and narrative, now they're being called racist. One of them said to me, me? Do they understand that I actually marched with Martin Luther King and they're calling me a racist? Because right now, everything is on raw emotion. And we even have the modern psychological world telling us that, well, you know, when somebody's upset, you have to validate their feelings. I get told this a lot when having to deal with people that might have some emotional issues, some things going on. And I have been told by modern psychologists and counselors, well, you have to validate their feelings. The problem is when you start validating feelings, then you are also affirming that, well, what you're feeling is correct. No, it's not always correct. I know they may be feeling that, but that doesn't make it right. Part of helping people get over things, part of helping people process things is saying, hey, here's an area where we need to take a look at where you misunderstand this, you are feeling this way, but really this is not how you should be feeling about this. That said, because we are letting people just run wild now in the streets and we're told we have to validate their feelings while other people are being killed, while cities are burning, you're kidding me, right? You know, you can stand up for justice. You can stand up for George Floyd. We can't even have a discussion right now of whether he was killed because of his race or because it was a rogue cop on a power trip. And just as easily as George Floyd was African American, he could have been Latino or Asian. Would it have mattered at that moment in the psyche of that particular police officer? He was a bully, and he was going to demonstrate and show his authority. But see, we can't even have that discussion right now because as soon as I bring that up, you're a racist. It's over the rails now. So all the president can do is first and foremost, we have to restore law and order. And I know the president's been chirped at even by people like Tucker Carlson. Why aren't you doing something? Well, as soon as he took a step in that direction, immediately, leadership at the Pentagon, former generals like Mad Dog Mattis come forward and say that it's unconstitutional. He can't. And we've already been through all that, and that the precedent of a president using the military under the Insurrection Act is definitely in Donald Trump's favor. But again, we can't even have that conversation right now because everybody is just in an emotional state. And that emotional state is triggering the libloons to really go literally sailing off into the abyss of stupidity where they have fallen out of the stupid tree and hit every branch head first. Now they want to do away with police entirely. Now look what's going to happen now to these two police officers in Buffalo. Here's a 75-year-old guy. I get it. Okay, he's older. But nobody talks about logically, hey, why are you even there, dude? You were in an area where you were told to vacate from. You were in an area past the established curfew, and you were being told, move back. You were refusing to give ground. You were going to stand there and do your thing, and the police officer gave you a pushback. Sorry, you fell. You know, and then the governor of New York comes out and says, it makes me sick. Right. If the governor were leaving a building and some people decided to get in his personal space and list out their grievances with the governor, do you think the governor would be sick to his stomach if one of his security people pushed the guy back, even if the guy fell and hit his head? You know, this phony liberal outrage makes me want to puke. And some of you people that are watching this that tend to be liberal, especially if you're black, understand the whole plight you are in, the whole systemic racism that you feel, it comes from the Democrats, the liberals. They pat you on the head, they tell you what you want to hear because they really don't think that you're smart enough to take care of yourself. So they promise you this, promise you that, keep you poor, keep you on the plantation, keep you in line. And when anything bad happens to you, we just blame it on the Republicans. We just blame it on Donald Trump. And some of you never Trumpers and that you want to now circle the wagons and help the left, understand something. It wouldn't matter what Republican occupied the White House right now. Even witless Romney, if he was the president right now, they would be blaming this all on him. The only difference between Romney and Trump in this situation is Romney would be out there kneeling and apologizing and saying, I'm sorry. Who is the president actually supposed to meet with? Who is the leader, the single leader that if the president said, all right, I want to meet with so-and-so and their entourage, their group, we will sit down at the White House, we will sit down on a neutral spot, but let's talk. Well, who is that person? And even if the president picked some members of BLM, Black Lives Matter, and sat down with them, how many other people would say, they don't represent all of us, and how dare he meet with them and not with us? Who is he supposed to meet with? See, this is over the top. And then you have guys like Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City, you know, basically giving a pass on all of this rioting and protesting and swearing his allegiance with the protesters that they need to be allowed to do what they do. And yet it wasn't that long ago that he was threatening to padlock and seize church buildings if they continue to meet. By the way, he has said that there will be no law enforcement as far as these mass gatherings of protesting and breaking the lockdown or coronavirus. But if you try to sneak off to a church on Sunday, that will be stopped. A reporter asked Mayor de Blasio how he could tolerate mass demonstrations but was still enforcing pandemic restrictions on small businesses as well as churches. This was Bill de Blasio's answer as recorded in the National Review. The extraordinary crisis seated in 400 years of racism is not the same question as the understandably aggrieved store owner or devout religious person who simply wants to go back to their services. So, in other words, what he's saying there is if it's a cause that he, the mayor, agrees in, they get a pass. If it's something that he, the mayor, doesn't see any importance in, you're going to jail. So, because he thinks people ought to be out there looting, rioting, and wreaking havoc, well, that's okay. But if you want to go to church, you're going to jail. You know, there's a biblical principle, a biblical law, if you will, sowing and reaping. The Bible says if you live by the sword, you will die by the sword. The senseless killing of George Floyd has triggered how many other senseless killings that nobody talks about. And I'm not just talking about Cap, the retired police officer in Milwaukee, but there have been other people of color who have been killed. There have been countless other people hurt. Some will be brain damaged because they literally had just about their entire brains kicked out as they lay on the sidewalk. There's really no aggressive investigation going on to apprehend or bring any of these people to justice. And the mayor's fine with all of that, but bless God, you're not going to walk in a church building and pray. Did it ever dawn on that absolute sociopath, socialist, communist, dirtbag Bill de Blasio that the reason the country is out of control right now is because the church has been padlocked and the pulpits have been muzzled? Whether or not you agree with the theology, you do understand that church can be a stabilizing factor in a society, in a community. Now, it's interesting because the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the California governor that he could keep churches closed. But if you read the entirety of their statement, which reads, the majority held that the Constitution gives officials of the states the duty to guard and protect the safety and health of the people, meaning California had the right to issue pandemic restrictions on houses of worship and other mass gatherings. That would be like arenas, that would be movie theaters, etc. Then Roberts wrote, quote, similar or more severe restriction as applied to those churches apply to comparable secular gatherings. Again, spectators in a gymnasium, people in a movie theater, people attending a concert. Only a few days later, the same mainstream media and governmental establishment consensus that viewed religious services and other public gatherings, that would be like the people in Michigan who were gathering in literal peaceful protests just to reopen their state and be able to mow their lawn. The consensus that viewed religious services and other public gatherings during a pandemic as irresponsible has disappeared. So in other words, if it's okay to protest in the streets without restriction, it's okay to go to church. And we'd better get back there because America is going to hell in a handbasket. And again, right now, who is the president supposed to meet with? Should he just do the symbolic thing and say, bring me Jesse Jackson? Give me a break. Give me a break. Law and order must be restored. And yes, we do need to address, we do need to deal with the fact that racism is real. But you can enact all the legislation you want to. The real problem is the heart of men, and the hearts of men are not regulated by laws. They're driven by conscience. And that only changes, not with re-education. That changes, and I'm going to get theological on you now, when you have a relationship with God. Sorry, Mr. de Blasio, but right now, we need more church. We need more God. We need more Jesus, not less.